2019's The Fanatic, directed by Fred Durst and starring John Travolta, might just be one of the most underrated and misunderstood movies I've ever seen. What should have been praised as a modern piece of art that explores many complex and important themes, ranging from mental health to our place in the world, to even an overall depiction of our selfish, narcissistic society, just to name a few, was instead regarded as a, quote, brainless, exploitative folly which gives John Travolta free rein to mine the history of cringe-worthy autism portrayals for an offensively garish Frankenstein pantomime of unhinged obsession. I don't even understand half the words this guy said, but it seems apparent to me that he went into this film hoping to hate it and was close-minded, not even trying to understand the hidden meanings lying under the surface of this film. And that seems to unfortunately be the case for most critics. Shamefully, the critics' ignorance caused the movie to fail horribly at the box office, only grossing about $3,000 on an estimated $20 million budget. It's funny seeing how many people keep complaining about the lack of originality in Hollywood and how movies now are just remakes and sequels and reboots, and yet when this new original thriller movie comes out, nobody wants to see it and it flops. Really goes to show how hypocritical our society really can be. So The Fanatic tells the story of Moose, a man-child who may be on the spectrum, working as a street performer on Hollywood Boulevard, and he's also an avid movie fan. He is obsessed with collecting props from movies he loves, and he's easily starstruck by celebrities. His absolute favorite celebrity, though, and the one he loves more than anything, is Hunter Dunbar, a famous action movie star. But when Moose finally gets an opportunity to meet him and get his autograph, he's rejected when Dunbar's ex-wife comes to abruptly see him.
I'm done. But where do you see this?
This tears Moose to shreds. He's devastated by the way his idol treated him.
Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Dunbar! Mr. Dummy Bar!
Moose is also friends with a young paparazzi photographer, Leah, who's of course his only friend. She's there to take care of him and make sure that he's alright, and their bond is crucial to this story. So at one point, Leah shows Moose an app that allows him to locate home addresses of famous people, including Hunter. Safe to say, things only go downwards from then on. Following Moose's deception with how his idol treated him, he starts stalking the movie star, putting letters in his backyard, hiding in his bushes, and slowly but surely developing a toxic and unhealthy obsession with Hunter. This eventually leads to the terrifying ending of the film, where Hunter wakes up to find out he's been tied up in his bed by Moose, who's so desperate to be loved by him.
Stop being so mean to me! Stop it!
Hunter promises that they're gonna become best friends and that it's all gonna work out for the better.
Does that sound good, man?
I love you. I love you.
But of course, they're all lies, because as soon as Moose unties him, he grabs a shotgun and shoots his fingers off. He pushes him in the stairs and goes as far as to stab him in the eye in a blind, uncontrollable rage. Hunter then realizes the monster he's become, and out of pity, he lets Moose leave the house. So let's start by exploring the film's themes. Of course, The Fanatic is about obsession, but more importantly, it's about crossing the line. When you look at it, Moose is not a bad guy. He's not hurting anyone at first, he's just a movie lover who has a hard time blending in with society. But he has a good heart, and he is a good person. Hunter Dunbar is the same. He's a good guy, he's a good father, and he has good values. But here's the key difference though. Moose is a good person, but a bad fan, just like Hunter is a good person, but a bad celebrity. The movie brings so many nuances and layers to these characters that aren't all pure or all evil, but that just weren't at the right place at the right time, which escalated into a violent outcome. Moose was too invasive and should have waited for Hunter to finish talking with his ex-wife, but Hunter was way too rude with him because he probably has anger issues and could not control himself. This is the first line both characters crossed. Then, Moose should not have gone to Hunter's house as it is a violation of property. But on the other hand, Hunter should not have physically and verbally threatened him and should have instead just asked him to leave. This is an ongoing theme throughout. Each character, as good as they are, keep on crossing the line more and more due to unfortunate events, which leads them both to become monsters. Another thing this film touches on is how our expectations of celebrities are almost always bound to disappoint. Famous people are everywhere, in magazines and interviews, commercials. Everywhere we go, we are bound to see famous people and have our own celebrity crushes, our own little obsessions with people we've never met. And yet we feel a connection with them. Fred Durst, in his directorial debut, wanted to show that rich and famous people are human beings. They have problems, they have flaws, and they're just trying to do their best like any other person. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that the world of Hollywood and stardom is, and that's a secret to nobody, a very superficial, unhealthy, and unrealistic world. It is riddled with greed and narcissism, and I think Durst wanted to address that. Whoever you are, whether it's a mentally disabled man or a famous action movie star, in the end we are all humans with flaws, and it's easy to cross the line and go too far. Now, I want to talk about our main character here, Moose. First of all, why Moose? A lot of people seem to think that it's a funny name, that it's weird and makes no sense. Little do they know, the symbolism behind Moose is very meaningful. This spirit animal teaches you to stand loud and proud and own who you are. In other words, your individuality is your strength. Moose is an outcast. He has problems fitting in with other people. He is strange, he has weird habits, and it's easy to make fun of him because he's different. But that's his strength. We're all different in so many ways, and I think his character is supposed to show that it's okay to be different. This is why I feel so much empathy for the character. He never tried to be harmful or mean, and even if he does act strangely, he has a heart of gold. Now, I've heard a lot of people mocking or complaining about the opening of the film. The first line of dialogue from Moose's character is as follows.
I can't talk too long. I gotta poo.
People seem to think this line is funny because he mentions needing to defecate. What are you, 12? Laughing at poop. We need to look beyond that. Why would someone say that to a store owner? Well, this is to subtly show us that Moose is disconnected from reality. A very powerful flashback in the movie shows us briefly what his childhood looked like. Moose had a very negligent mother and was left all alone every day just watching horror movies as his only source of education. Moose has never evolved from this. He's still the same child in his head. As adults, we've come to learn what to filter, what to say and what to keep for ourselves, what is considered acceptable or unacceptable in our modern society. But put yourself in the mindset of a child. When you were 7 or 8, did you ever wait and think about what you were about to say? Moose saying he has to go to the toilet is an indicator that he can't make the difference between what's normal and what isn't. He just says what he has in mind. It's the same for when he puts on the jacket backwards.
Moose, that's you putting it on backwards.
I know.
People have laughed at this, saying it's ridiculous. Sure, it makes no sense seeing a grown adult not wearing jackets properly, but Moose is Moose. He's a child with strange habits, and he wants to wear the jacket the way he damn pleases. Keep in mind, Moose stopped growing up and instead got trapped in this disturbed and dysfunctional state of mind, which he could never detach himself from. Watching the film with this in mind, it makes sense now for him to interrupt people in the middle of a conversation, or say inappropriate things at inappropriate times, or even just literally acting like a kid, because he is one, always has been and always will be. Now that's something to think about. If we want to dive even further with this theory, let's observe the scene that many consider to be unintentionally funny, when Moose is being bullied and finally snaps.
Fucking cash, bitch!
I was sure Freddy Krueger would come and chop off your head, and it would roll in the street, and the truck would squish it, and the blood would splatter everywhere, and everyone would watch it!
So people pointed out that it's funny how Moose threatens a guy by mentioning a fictional serial killer, in this case Freddy Krueger, a famous pop culture icon from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Of course, this does sound silly. Why would he wish for a movie character to come chop his head off? Well, at the risk of repeating myself, Moose grew up watching movies, especially horror, and it's all he has as a reference to how he acts. If he just threatened the guy by saying something like, "I'm gonna kill you," or "I'll stab you to death," it would sound more menacing, but it wouldn't fit with the character. This scene has two purposes. One, to show us that Moose is losing it. He's tired of being the victim all the time and he's becoming more violent. That is shown visually. But thanks to the great dialogue, the scene also makes us understand the character's psyche even more. It seems people didn't understand that. As for Moose's relationship with Leah, I view it as a sort of inner conflict between Moose and himself. Sure, Leah is real, she's not a fragment of his imagination, but her role seems to be the little inner voice in your head telling you to be careful and to think before you act. Leah is the voice of reason, trying to stop Moose from going too far, and Moose has to fight with this inner conflict. But of course, as we find out, his obsession has taken too much space in his head, so he muffles the inner voice until it's too late. There is one last interesting symbol that I'd like to address regarding Moose's character, and ironically, it's yet another scene that people found to be funny. It's when Moose finally enters Hunter Dunbar's house while he's gone and starts exploring and just appreciating being there. Here's the scene.
Moose is in the house. Moose is in the house. Watch out. Watch out. Here's Moosey.
I think you know where I'm headed with this. Yes, Moose is in fact in a house, but again, we can look deeper than that. What does a house represent? Why would Moose put an emphasis on being inside a house? Well, the symbolism of the house is associated with enclosed and protected space, similar to the mother's womb. In fact, it is the first place in each person's life. As an enclosed space, it serves to shelter and protect from the outside world. Doesn't this sound oddly familiar? Moose never had a home. He never had a family that cared for him, never had love or respect. That's all he wants from Hunter, or from anyone for that matter. He wants to feel like he belongs somewhere, like he's at home. I could talk about the Fanatic for hours and hours. I think it's an amazing character study, up there with Joker and Taxi Driver, that really dives deep into the psychology of a broken man. I hope I was able to open your third eye and make you understand more things about the film. I also hope you give it a second watch and try to be more open-minded. Who knows, you might be surprised. Lastly, stay tuned for next week's video, where I'm going to explore why The Haunted House 2 is the Dark Knight of horror comedies.